Thanks everyone for being here. Why don't you guys move up a little closer? And I want to thank all the leaders and representatives of the TSA, the air traffic controllers, the aviation safety specialists, all the folks who make safe airline travel possible in this country. I'm going to be relying on you folks in just less than an hour as I board a flight from here to Washington, D.C. in an effort to reopen the government. The failure of our federal government to pay federal employees is absolutely abhorrent and abominable. And I'm going to be talking about that in a moment. But let me just first say thank you to you for being here today. We're going to hear from Christopher Schofield, then Paul, Brian Krampavidis, whom I mentioned on the floor of the United States Senate, Valraya Lewis, and Sal Luciano, in that order, and I can remind you as we go along. There are about 150 TSA workers at Bradley and about 40 air traffic controllers. They are largely coming to work, doing their job, protecting safety in the skies, and making possible air travel for all of us who rely on them every day. They are largely invisible. If you walk into the airport, you don't see these guys walking around. You may see them at the TSA counters, but by and large, the folks who keep us safe do it silently, invisibly, without a lot of credit or acclaim. Their job is one of national security. They are working, but they are unpaid. Some of them are furloughed and unpaid. And we owe them better. We owe them pay, and I have supported and championed a measure that was passed last week that will provide them with that back pay. But this now almost month-long shutdown is exacting real harm and hardship on them. It is also having a rippling effect throughout our economy. It is impacting industries and economic development and real jobs, real lives, real people who need their pay and income. We are entering a time of fundamental unfairness in the way that we are treating America, and most particularly the federal employees who come to work every day and protect our national security. To require people to go to work without pay is simply un-American. It's unjust and unfair. It is a mockery of our democratic system. And so I have supported a measure that will extend protections similar to the Service Member Civil Relief Act against collection of debts, repossession of cars, ending insurance for workers who are unable to make those payments. It's a stopgap kind of measure to provide temporary relief. It in no way corrects the fundamental unfairness of requiring people to come to work without pay. I also believe that these workers, whether they are furloughed or required to come to work, should be granted unemployment insurance compensation. The furloughed workers, under the present regulations of the State Department of Labor, will get unemployment compensation insurance. If the furloughed workers receive unemployment insurance benefits, so too should the folks who are coming to work without pay. In fact, the people who are coming to work without pay deserve this kind of benefit as much as the folks who are furloughed and staying home. Neither are unpaid through any choice of their own. They are essentially unemployed for purposes of their compensation. That's what I think the Department of Labor ought to do as a matter of interpretation of its own regulation. If it concludes, and it is the state labor department that has that power, that there is no legal justification for these benefits going to the working employees who are unpaid, then the legislature ought to change the law today. If a legislative change is necessary, they're in session, they can do it right now. And I hope the governor and the legislature will support such a change, because the harm and hardship is just intolerable. I also will support the lawsuits that have been brought. I strongly support legal action under the Fair Labor Standards Act and other federal law. These workers are going to work without pay, and that is a violation of the most fundamental fair labor standards in this country. Requiring people to work without pay is abhorrent to the spirit and the letter of our worker protection laws. I strongly support these legal actions and lawsuits. I'm no longer Attorney General. I can't join in supporting it as a matter of appearing in court as a party, but I believe that all of us in federal office should support these federal lawsuits and other legal actions to vindicate the letter and spirit of our federal laws. And finally, let me just say, the path forward here is pretty clear. Put to a vote on the floor of the Senate the bills that would reopen the government. Mitch McConnell ought to be ashamed and embarrassed that he is standing between these laws and the workers of our country getting paid, our economic interests being served, and fundamental fairness being vindicated. If he calls these bills to a vote this afternoon, they will pass. I guarantee they will pass, and if Donald Trump vetoes them, I believe there are enough votes to override that veto. But at the very least, the buck should stop at the White House. Our Republican leadership should not be running interference and, in effect, buffering the president from the decisions that only he can make. Right now, Mitch McConnell is running interference for the president. I hope that by the time these news reports appear, he will have changed his stand. Because I am told by my Republican colleagues, privately, and some of them publicly, that they have deep misgivings about the present course, because it is doing such harm and hardship to the country. If he puts these bills to a vote, they will pass. If Donald Trump vetoes them, I believe his veto will be overridden. But I think that if he has to bear the public brunt of responsibility for keeping the government shut down, he will yield. There is no reason that the government should be kept shut down over the president's vanity project that Mexico was supposed to pay for, a wall that is ineffective and wasteful. And if he continues to insist on it, we should talk about border security after the government is reopened. We can reopen the government and then debate the proper mechanisms to assure border security. I believe a wall is the worst way to go if it is a concrete structure or metal slabs from sea to shining sea. There are better ways to assure border security, more effective and cost-effective ways, more effective and less costly ways, such as more technology and more resources like manpower and better training. Drones, surveillance, sensors, fences, reinforcement of existing barriers. We can debate what the most effective ways to assure border security are, but we should be doing it after the government is reopened. So I am hopeful that we can arrive at a solution this week. We have a basic responsibility to reopen the government right now, today. And there are no better people to talk about our public responsibility than the TSA and air controllers who are on the job assuring our security, making it possible for me to fly today and others every day. This issue is really of such paramount importance that I am supporting the lawsuits that have been brought, advocating that unemployment benefits be provided, other short-term measures be assured, everything done to make it possible for these folks to do their job. And let me now call on Christopher Schofield, then Paul, Brian, Valera, and Sal.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning. My name is Christopher Schofield. I'm a federal employee. I work for the FAA I'm here on behalf of the Professional Aviation Safety Specialists. As we enter our 24th day of the government shutdown, the employees that are still reporting to work, not getting paid for it, and the employees that are furloughed are starting to really get the consequences. We missed our first paycheck. We all have mortgages. We all have rent. We have bills that have to be paid. We all, have appliances that are broken. My washer actually just broke last week, and I don't know when I'm going to replace it. I'm worried for not only myself, any other federal employee, approximately 800,000 that are currently furloughed or not getting paid. And it can only get worse from here as far as affording bills, making sure that everything has to get paid. I know that a lot of the safety inspectors are currently not on the job. So we have people that aren't able to do the safety checks that we would normally do. We have people that are not able to do the ride-alongs with airlines, and unfortunately it's only a matter of time before that becomes a bigger effect than it already is. A lot of us are having to take up second and third jobs. I'm trying to pick up as many hours as I can just to try and pay the bills. It's definitely a tough time, but hopefully we can figure out something pretty soon. I would like to ask everybody to contact their congressman if they can and urge them to help reopen the government. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Good morning. My name is Paul Feragne. That's F-E-R-A-G-N-E. I'm the local president here at 237 for AFGE. I represent the BUEs in 3 states, 5 airports. That would be Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Vermont, with 5 airports under that. We have approximately 750 BUEs total out of 3 airports. I can tell you that one of the main concerns right now, as today is the first official payday that has been missed by its employees, that the employees are concerned. They're anxious. They are worried about how they're going to maintain their bills. I've gotten numerous phone calls, emails, and text messages from my BUEs stating they don't know how that next car payment is going to be made. How am I going to get to work if I lose my car? Where am I going to go stay if I can't make the rent payment this month? The employees are concerned. Federal employees are concerned. I'm not sure what the White House was referencing when it stated that its 800,000 employees were in concurrence with the White House in reference to the wall. Not sure about that, because I can give them 750 reasons from my 750 BUEs that are not with that program. They're concerned. Also, some of the other things that are going on right now with the BUEs is the unemployment. Thanks to Senator Blumenthal, and on, I believe it was Friday, we met with Senator Chris Murphy down in New Haven, Tweed, and brought this issue up. The employees are concerned about its unemployment. The local has reached out to the unemployment office in Wethersfield. We've made approximately 3 or 4 phone calls down there to speak with different supervisors. We've also sent out emails, all to be denied. No response back via email, no response back via phone calls, nothing. Leaving us out to dry. That's very, very worrisome. I have no information to bring back to my employees until Senator Blumenthal stepped up after speaking with him in reference to this problem. He's taken this head on, and the union appreciates it, Senator. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what are unions?
Bargaining unit employees.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Brian?
Morning. Brian Krampavitis, National Air Traffic Controllers Association. I'm the president and facility representative here at Bradley Tower. On behalf of the 40 air traffic controllers that work at Bradley, the 14,000 that work across the country, all working right now without being paid, the 3,000 aviation safety professionals that are currently furloughed and wondering when they're going to be able to get back to work, we just want to thank Senator Blumenthal for his support, and just know that our prime concern is getting the government reopened, getting these employees back to work, and getting our paychecks for the work that we've already done. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And now, Valeria?
Good morning. I'm Valeria Lewis. I'm a national representative for AFGE. That's VALYRIA, Lewis, LEWIS. Here on behalf of National Vice President Vincent Castellano, who represents employees in the state of Connecticut, all of New England, New York, and New Jersey. I'm also a former TSA officer. I worked for TSA for approximately 7 years at Memphis International Airport. So I have been on both sides of this fight as both an officer who's worked during a shutdown and as a national union representative. And I wanted to bring a few things to your attention. There have been, I've received an influx of messages across the country from officers who have been threatened at work, threatened with AWOL if they call out sick. I even had someone from a different airport to contact me to say that they're being told that they can't call out sick, they have to show up to work to tell management that they are sick. And that by itself is sick. It's problematic in that it's showing that our management is not supporting the bargaining unit employees or the TSOs who are coming in to do their job. We're asking that management would show some compassion for these TSOs who are making a sacrifice, showing up to work daily without pay. So instead of offering them a threat, how about using those government vehicles and offering them a ride to work? You know, we hear people say often that, you know, the Senate passed the bill to allow the federal employees to receive back pay, and we thank you for that. And so I hear from the public often, well, they'll eventually get paid. Well, guess what? They can't eventually eat. Diabetics can't wait to eventually take their insulin. They need it now, and we need for folks to take some action now. In addition to that, I want to be clear about the president made this statement that this shutdown could last for months or even years. Well, I'm here to tell you that that cannot happen because these employees have a security clearance, and what comes along with that security clearance is a financial suitability requirement, which means that these employees must make their bills. If their bills go delinquent, then their security clearance is in jeopardy, and they're in jeopardy of losing their security clearance. And if they lose their security clearance, they cannot come to work. So coming to work without pay won't even be an option. So what good is having a barrier at the border when we have no one protecting our skies, our sea coasts? or we don't have any employees in ICE or our corrections officers. So it's not just TSA employees that are suffering. We have folks on the border, Border Patrol officers. They're not happy about not getting a paycheck. Our ICE employees are not happy about not getting a paycheck. And the folks who guard our inmates, our federal inmates, are not happy about getting a paycheck. And to be clear about this sick thing, I know there have been several articles that have gone out and say they call it the blue flu. You know, I can't speak for those employees to tell you what their physical ailment is, but I can tell you that as a former TSO, when I was told that I wouldn't be getting a paycheck, I was sick. I was mentally sick. And I think some of you would be sick also if you found out you were not getting a paycheck. And so we also need to understand that TSA has a standard operating procedure and a fitness for duty requirement. These employees cannot work if they are sleep deprived, or if they are mentally incapacitated, if they are under the influence of prescription or over-the-counter drugs. So I need TSA management to enforce their own policy and not force employees who tell you that they are sick to come to work, because you place our nation's security at risk when you do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Sal, thanks a lot for that.
Sal Luciano, President of the AFL. Thank you, Senator Blumenthal, for putting this together. But more importantly, thank you for fighting every day to reopen the federal government so that these workers can finally get back to work. And for those of you that don't know, Senator Blumenthal is donating his salary until the shutdown ends to a local nonprofit veterans group. This is the longest government shutdown in history, 24 days. It's completely unacceptable and unnecessary. Just imagine if Amazon forced hundreds of thousands of workers to work but refused to pay them. It would be criminal. Our government shouldn't be able to get away with that either. This shutdown, as you can see, is hurting real people in our community. Some workers have had to start taking out loans just to make ends meet. So even with back pay, this shutdown will cost them. This shutdown not only affects workers for the federal government, it hurts our local communities. Right here at Bradley, there are inspectors that have been furloughed, which makes the flying public less safe. Grants to community partners that help the formerly incarcerated have stopped. Corrections officers that may not be able to survive without a paycheck may quit for a more stable job, which leaves our prisons even more understaffed. Low-income workers may lose access to food stamps. Food inspectors have been furloughed, putting our food safety at risk. Brewers, farmers, small businesses, the list goes on and on. They are all affected by this shutdown. The people locked out and those forced to work without pay make this country run. They protect us when we fly, they guard our prisons, they inspect our food, and they take care of our veterans. They deserve better. To President Trump and Senator McConnell, end this shutdown, open the government, do your job so these workers can do theirs.
I want to thank all of the speakers who have articulated so well what's at stake here, and again, thank you for your great work. Happy to take any questions.
Have you spoken to Governor Lamont about the possibility of the Department of Labor being able to give unemployment compensation to those who are unemployed?
I have not spoken to Governor Lamont. I am going to be reaching out to him. My office has been in touch with the Department of Labor. I've seen the regulation and the public explanation that they give for it. I'm hoping that they will reconsider.
And they have the power to do that?
You know, I think an expansive reading of the current law would enable them to do it. But if the law needs to be changed, it should be done immediately, literally today. Well, I'll let Paul speak to that issue, but let me just emphasize a point that Valeria made about the impact of debt on security. There is a reason why the background security checks ask about whether an individual is in debt. And this applies not only to TSA employees, but Secret Service, FBI, they're all coming to work without pay. They're all incurring debt, which they are unable to pay. The reason is that unpaid debt potentially compromises people. That's the reason why in every background check, the FBI asks, do you have any debts? Because debts pose a vulnerability to potential bribery and even potential collaboration with a foreign adversary. So this issue is not only about our moral obligation to these workers, it is about our security as a nation. And I just want to emphasize, and I alluded to it before, but it goes to your question. These guys are going to get the job done. They're going to be at work. They're coming to work. They may be overtired and overworked. They're going to be on the job. But we want more than just their physical minds and bodies. We want them to be rested and ready to do their absolute best. And I will tell you, as an air traveler, about to get on an airplane in just literally minutes, I worry about security in all kinds of ways, most especially when we are flying. Now, the folks in Washington may tell me, oh, well, your worry is unjustified. It's all you're imagining. You're fine. But I worry, and I'm angry. And the American people should be angry, and they should be sick at heart about the way we are treating dedicated employees who are giving their best to this country and who are protecting us from all kinds of threats on the ground as well as in the air.
Tell us more about that worry. I mean, are there, either with people calling in sick or whatever, are there any staffing issues that relate directly to security? In other words,
I'm going to let Paul speak to...
There was a case at another airport, somebody did get a gun on the plane, etc.
Let me put it this way in general. There is a danger to security from understaffing or overworking the people who are assigned to protecting against threats. And those threats may be the danger of colliding airplanes, nothing advertent or purposeful, or they may be literally threats from terrorists. These are the folks who stop people from taking knives and guns onto airplanes. These are the folks who prevent two planes from colliding here on a runway. So my worry is that they either will be unable to perform at the level that they need to do for maximum proficiency, and anything less than their absolute best is insufficient for me as an air traveler. Laura?
I wanted to speak to that. That incident actually originated out of Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson's airport on a flight to, I believe, Narita, Tokyo, Japan. I did read that article, but I'm also a former national rep, and I used to be the president of that TSA local, and those are some very dedicated professional officers. However, I want to emphasize, and I can't emphasize this enough, these people are distracted. When they cannot pay their bills, they're distracted. When they cannot sleep at night, they're distracted. And TSA's fitness for duty requirement is there for a reason. They want people to be in their best mind and their best physical health when they come to work. We've had people that have been terminated for falling asleep on the job due to an illness or due to some sort of medication that they're on. So I would not doubt that has happened, and if we don't get the government back up and running, I don't doubt that could happen again. So we want to encourage folks to contact your senators. If you have a Republican senator, not y'all here, if you have a Republican senator, reach out to them and tap them on the shoulder and let them know that our country's safety is at risk. Our national security is at risk. Thank you.
Just to reiterate my question, so
So staffing for air traffic controllers across the country is at a 30-year low. At Bradley, our staffing is just under where we should be, but we have not had an influx of sick calls or anything like that outside of the norm. But when the government shut down the way it is, it shuts down all of our training throughout the country. So our academy in Oklahoma City is currently shut down. They process about 1,100 new hires a year that go out to the field into the facilities and learn how to be controllers at their respective facilities. All that is shut down, and that stoppage of training is going to ripple for the next year and a half to 2 years. We're still catching up from 2013 when the academy shut down. So that's what put us at our 30-year low, was the shutdown of 2013, and here we are in 2018. The academy has now been shut down for a month, and it's going to take at least a month to a month and a half to turn it back on once the government finally does reopen.
In reference to the TSA part of that, I can't speak on behalf of TSA, but what I can tell you from a union standpoint, that the status quo is being met. Officers are coming to work. There is no overage of call-outs that are going to affect travel at this point. And the officers are doing the best they can right now. It's one thing to remember that, you know, TSA is the first and last line of defense before that plane goes up in the air or comes back down. If the officers are not here due to calling out sick, as it was mentioned, you know, they shouldn't be given a hard time. If they're sick, they're sick. They're not doing it because they don't want to come to work. And that needs to be stressed. Thank you.
Do you know how many TSA agents are here at Bradley?
I believe it's roughly, bargaining unit employees are right around, I believe, 150 to 200.
And I guess a question for anybody. Should airline executives be pressuring the president, saying that this is unacceptable for their business?
Well, I'll speak for myself.
There's only 4 airlines left, but you know what I mean.
I think airline executives have absolutely a moral and economic obligation. They have an obligation to their customers to make sure that air travel is as safe as possible, and they have an obligation to their shareholders because the credibility of their service is going to be impugned eventually. So I hope that the entire country will join in the outcry and outrage, and most especially airline executives and others who have a real trust responsibility to their customers, their shareholders, and their employees.
And do Democrats share any responsibility in the shutdown, you think, or no?
The shutdown right now can be ended this afternoon if the bills passed by the House are given a vote in the United States Senate. They will pass. They will go to the president. He has an absolute responsibility to sign them. If he fails to do so, I believe there is a significant chance his veto will be overridden. But Mitch McConnell right now has the keys to this conundrum. And there's a clear path forward. We disagree about issues all the time. We don't shut down the government simply because we have a disagreement. We don't have a temper tantrum or petulantly refuse to act simply because we have a disagreement. And we should do our job, move forward, pass the bills necessary to reopen the government. Senator Graham suggested a 3-week, in effect, cooling off period where we reopen the government and have this kind of debate or conversation. That's a good place to start. But the real solution here is give us a vote and sign the bills.
Has there been any talk, perhaps nationally, of the labor strike, among TSA or FAA workers?
I'll let the workers speak.
Let me say this: AFGE will not sanction or condone a strike, work stoppage, work slowdown, sick out, We do understand that it is a violation of law and for our workers to do that. So that is not happening. That's not an option. These officers and these employees are upholding their oath by showing up to work. So that's not going to happen.
Are you saying you have a no strike clause? Are you saying that's why?
That's the law.
Thank you.
I understand with each passing day the concerns grow, and you have mentioned that today was the first missed paycheck. Is there another date, let's say the shutdown continues on longer, that workers are especially concerned about?
I would say that as today being the official payday for the first missed paycheck, this will be the hardest impact on federal workers. The first real adjustment, the reality of not having anything in your bank account to pay your bills, for the single moms that work in the agency across the country not to be able to feed their children. I mean, we have officers that are going to food banks. I mean, how bad is that? For federal officers to have to go to a food bank because they can't get their paycheck to pay their bills or put food on the table. They're contemplating whether to put gas in their car, as everybody has heard. Do we put gas in our car, or do we not come to work and put food on the table for our kids? Who's going to watch our kids if we can't pay for daycare? These are all the growing concerns that the union, and as well as the senator and everybody else involved in this process, is trying to take care of.
And, you know, let me just say, I've talked to a lot of the federal employees who are affected, young Coast Guard men and women who are obviously in no way even thinking of not coming to work. That's their duty, to protect our nation like these folks. But they have young families, and they have no idea when this shutdown is going to end. It's not just missing this paycheck. It's the uncertainty that roils people's fears about what will happen in the future when they can't meet their mortgages, put food on the table, buy pharmaceutical drugs. These are day-to-day needs. People are living paycheck to paycheck. And I think, you know, there really is a moral responsibility here, and we are way past the date when there's any excuse for our failing to reopen the government, pay these folks, give them the back pay, make sure that they are treated fairly. And the effects are on the entire economy, and eventually they'll be irreparable. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. I thank you for reiterating that on the security piece. Right. Hi. I actually spoke to that at in Boston, but I'm glad you.
Yeah, so